Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Patton, and today I'm joined by my colleague Joe Sharmer. We're going to talk about security considerations during an Active Directory migration. And I think one of the first things that we should be talking about is just passwords. And Joe, I know passwords been an age-old problem for many, many different years. How often have you helped a customer do a migration where they haven't wanted to migrate over passwords?
Very infrequently. In most cases, we typically see customers wanting to bring the passwords over simply because it allows for some ease of transition for the end users, right? They're used to their passwords. Prevents the source environment and the new objects being created to have a generic password that has to be emailed out to the end users and things like that. So in most cases, what we typically see is that during migration, those source passwords will be wanted to be moved over by the by the administrators. Obviously there's challenges with that, right? And some things that you need to be concerned about. And Brian, I'll let you talk about those.
Yeah, one of the first things I like to think about, who has the ability to get passwords to begin with? I've done security assessments. Many organizations will have more than just the default people that can get passwords. So what you're seeing here, who has that replicating directory changes all permission at the domain level. And typically within the administrators that you see here, there's the other different nested groups like domain admins, other different things. And all those different people have had the ability to get passwords for quite a period of time. So as soon as you hook the two different directories up together, you know, it becomes a bit more problematic. Not only that, you have passwords and you're migrating the passwords over to the new environment. When's the last time those passwords have actually changed? A common password I like to look at. If I go to an organization and the KRBTGT password hash has never been changed, there may be a golden ticket just lingering out there. And as soon as I attack or attach another domain into this trust relationship, I could use one account to now affect more different objects as I'm doing this migration later on. So perhaps it may be a good thing to even get your KRBTGT hygiene in place prior to doing a migration to make sure that you're not just expanding out the attack surface later on down the road. In addition, I was dealing with a customer just yesterday, and they had a password where they initially did an upgrade from NT Pro, and that password hadn't changed since 1997. So maybe you want to take in consideration the password policies in your organization prior to doing a migration. Therefore, the passwords would have to change prior to doing a migration. Therefore, we can migrate that password hash of a much more complex password to begin with than something that's very well known and has been sitting dormant in an environment for a long period of time. Now, the other item that I think is important to talk about is SID history. And I think people take it for granted that you have to do an Active Directory migration using SID history. SID history was added in the first iterations of Active Directory when people were moving from the NT platforms to AD, and was really provided as a mechanism to help the transition to Active Directory. But Joe, do you have to do a migration using SID history?
No, absolutely not. And I talk to customers every single day about doing Active Directory migrations, and it's so common for them to say, oh, and of course we need to have SID history, and we need to bring that over because we need to be able to provide access back into the source environment for the end users so they don't have to be prompted for credentials to do that. And I think the reality of it is that the easy answer, right? The big easy button is, oh, sure, move SID history over because it becomes easy to do. But the reality of it is that from a security perspective, there's a lot of things that come along with moving SID history. We worked with a customer, I think last week, that had SID history from 4 previous acquisitions in there, and it's never been cleaned up. So SID history is something that can be utilized if it's absolutely required, but it doesn't have to be there if you don't need it.
So my takeaway is SID history adds security risk but lowers project risk. And I'm not necessarily too concerned about just having SID history to begin with, but make sure that it is temporary. If you look at the MITRE attack matrix, you have the ability to see that SID history can definitely affect an organization. And typically, it is meant to be temporary in an organization. But my key takeaway, if you are using SID history, make sure you finish the migration and don't remove the part of the migration where you re-ACL everything to remove the SID history dependency and ultimately remove SID history to begin with. Anything out there, Joe?
No, just understand that the default has always been, well, yes, let's move SID history over. But the reality of it is that if you don't if you don't move SID history over, really from an end user perspective during a migration, really what it means is simply that the users will be prompted for credentials to access applications and resources in that source environment. And that's all, right? So take the benefit you get and weigh it against the risk, especially nowadays in today's tumultuous environment where ransomware has become rampant in organizations. Is it really worth it? So really consider the ability to move SID history against the risk that it could potentially cause.
Now, the third key bullet point, applications. This has always been a big challenge with migrations, is even identifying which applications are used in the directory. Another challenge for existing applications is the authentication sources that we're seeing organizations use in their environment. Even recently, there was the Petit Patam, you know, attack that was used recently, which is all about NTLM relay. And going back, if you can in fact get rid and disable NTLM and utilize Kerberos only, your environments will be inherently more secure. You can see here's the mitigation, get rid of NTLM. But unfortunately, many different legacy applications still require them. So during a migration, typically there is a process and a phase around user acceptance training. And one easy suggestion that we could do is during the user acceptance training, you're migrating key individuals, take advantage of the protected users group. This will nullify and remove the ability to use NTLM authentication, and you can see if it's going to work for those different user accounts or not. And it's really going to reduce the time to live of the Kerberos ticket to begin with. And maybe this will give you the information in doing a migration, where maybe you can start figuring out which applications truly are using NTLM, which ones have to use Kerberos, and give you more information to make that different decision about what you're going to be doing moving forward. The other key aspect that usually comes up in migration with the applications is, will my applications work in a hardened environment? So I like to use the STIGS, the Security Technical Implementation Guides that the US DoD provides to give me a lot of different settings to lock down an environment. So when doing a migration, instead of just worrying about migrating over all your different group policies, perhaps you reevaluate which group policies and configuration settings should be applied to all these different environments and see what applications will or will not work with the different STIGs being applied. Joe, any other thoughts around working with the STIGs?
Well, more in general, the idea is that migrating on-premise applications during a migration is going to be the hardest part in your migration. Hands down, that's going to be the most challenging thing. The reality of it is that in order to be successful with your application migration, you have to have a really good inventory and assessment of those applications. And by doing that, taking the time to do that, you get the opportunity to address the things that Brian has just talked about. What type of authentication method are they using? Can they be upgraded? Do they still need to use NTLM and things like that? So understand that moving applications is going to take time, but making sure that you plan, evaluate, and assess those applications prior to actually moving any particular individual is really going to be key to the success of your migration, as well as ensuring that you're not taking applications that have security vulnerabilities in the source and moving them over into the target environment where, those security vulnerabilities could potentially cause problems in that target environment.
Thanks, Joe. And in reality, I know our time's a little bit limited. There's many other different security considerations during AD migration. If you're ever interested in reaching out, learning a little bit more, we're happy to assist there. The other different topics, we may want to investigate is even like your NTFS structure, your devices, your endpoints. Feel free to reach out, and we're happy to have a conversation and help you out with your different projects. Thanks, everybody.